Hello, everyone. I am clicking a heck of a lot because I have a million bits of text and other things to deal with for this stream. My name is Jonathan Strander. I am often known online as M. Blackwell. I was the lead designer for all of the gameplay, game code, on the project. I coded all of the scripting, about 90% of it. So I've been hanging around in Discord a lot and been getting a lot of questions about things like how to program enemies. So I figured, hey, we'll do a little stream and we'll show people because it's actually not too difficult. Um, I want to say hi to Fred as well. He's in the chat moderating, and everybody should give him some love and thank him for letting us do this awesome project we did with the build engine. So it's friggin' nuts. It's probably one of the most insane things I've ever done. Um, I'm working 4 years on this thing. So anyway, let me see here. So I actually have some things that I already pre-set up just to make this go a little bit quicker. I imported some new tiles for enemies, um, which the person that you'll want to look for is if you go on our Discord server, his name is Alexander, otherwise goes by Cage. He did all of the artwork for the game and he imported most of the tiles that you see and figured out how to do all of this fancy stuff. And I just pretty much copied him and figured out what he did. So the first thing that you always do is set up your enemy tiles. So I have here frames for, let me show you in the editor, frames for standing, walking around, one for getting hit, and then I did a series of animations just for an attack. We didn't. This is from an old project that I had laying around, and it doesn't have a death animation. Actually, I've decided that after this project, I will distribute all of this stuff uh, as something that you can use to experiment with. Um, After you edit, put in your enemy tiles, then you're going to want to actually name it, which right here on this section of the screen, you can see a definition that I did, my enemy, and I gave it a number, which is corresponding to this in Mapster. You see where it says in the right-hand corner. Let's see if we can get my mouse on screen so you can see here. Da-da-da. Capture the cursor. I'll say capture the cursor. There we go. Now you can see where the heck I'm pointing. 15512, and then so I said, "Oh, my enemy 15512," and then I actually included as a separate file in this main.conf under enemies.conf my enemy, and then I stuck it right here. This is the beginnings when you're setting up an enemy. You figure out what all of your actions are, which are your basic animations, and we can send a URL here. Let me find a URL to this action. Post that in the chat here. Microphone is quiet. Is that any better? Or I can boost it too. Okay, cool. All right. So let's see. I'm going to actually paste this in the Twitch chat so you can click it, but also paste it on screen for posterity here. This is a action. This is how you define all of your animations. So I have one for standing, one for walking, one for running, one for being hit, and one for swiping at the player, which I showed you those frames in the editor. So you follow this basic guide for how an action works, and you can set up, it starts at this frame, this offset frame from your first tile. It has this many frames of animation. It has this many sides, and then there's some flags and a timer at the end here. And I like to set up my actions first if I can, just so that I can see how my animations play out. It's not necessary, but it's better for your workflow if you know what your target is. Ion Fury 2. Ion Fury 2, lost at medieval times. That is actually the title of our sequel. That is true. God, you guys are nuts. Anyway, sorry, I'm distracted by chat. I want to show you actually this Nuke Mutant. So the Nuke Mutants, they're radioactive, sort of half melted people that are in Ion Fury. Some people refer to them as zombies. They're actually not zombies, they're mutants. And although we do shorthand it as zombie too sometimes, because zombies just convenient and it sounds cool. And they kind of look like zombies, right? It's fun. Anyway, I've told people to look at this enemy as a basic guide. So when you do a search term for Nuke Mutant and you're like, oh, how would I program this? Well, you go here to where it says user actor enemy, a Nuke Mutant. It's got some health value, and then a starting animation. And then what I do here is I set up basic parameters for enemies in a series of states, which we will do down here. We can literally just, when you're setting up your first enemy, you can literally just copy this, paste that shit in here. Excuse my language. And then delete this reference here. That's for your, and that's most of the code you need, which if I was to describe what it does here, the first thing we always want to do for enemies is check if they can see the player, which this one takes care of. So that's why I was like, oh, we'll just call this state. That's fine. And then there's silly things like checking if we cleared waypoints for locator paths. There's seeing if we paused the AI using one of our cheats. There's actually waking up the enemy actor if the player's close and they can see. And then there's different little hacks here where you can see, whoops, where I skip, like, oh, these are dumb little functions that we have. skipping seeing the players so that they'll continue on locator paths. There's checking to see, oh, did they see the player in this original state up here? And if so, we'll not use any of our little breadcrumb waypoints to let them navigate the environment. There's the right here do target icon. That's all nonsense for our revolver targeting. There's actually letting the enemies sleep until the player gets close to it. This is all, basic code that we use for every enemy. Is what you see on screen right now, and it's all, just pretty much copy and paste for this stuff. I tried to make it as simple as possible to say, okay, this is generic stuff. We'll do it all the time. People just need to do this. You guys are funny. Duke Nukem parodies. Parody of a parody. Borderlands. I actually own Borderlands and Borderlands 2 and have never played them. Around the time that I bought them, I ended up starting to develop this game. So, and now they don't sound as fun. Doesn't sound very fun to just do, wander around and get loot drops. I'm just not into it. I like precision shooting, like Ion Fury. Anyway, let's see here. So, I had people do that. Now, I had mentioned, sorry, waypoints and locator paths and all that stuff, and that's all pretty much automated in the scripting as long as you call all the right functions. So first thing we might do is, let's see, is when the actor spawns, we're going to call this state, which dumps some stuff into memory that it will need later. And then we just do this, make sure to wake up the enemy if they have patrol tags. So we're actually integrating this on the fly with all of the other nonsense that's in the game, like waypoints and locators and all of this other stuff, just by pasting this code in here. This is just, hey, make it work, okay? And you can, let's see, as long as I didn't make any typos, we can always go and check and see if anything we did didn't actually work. But, apparently no typos at all compiled. So far, so good. Yeah. Considering how much copying and pasting I just did, the average idiot can definitely do this. I mean, did you... And once I have this set up, you'll be able to copy and paste this for yourself and use it as a basis for your own nonsense. I'm sorry. Okay. Weird, my text editor is flickering. I don't know if you guys notice that my text editor looks a little weird. I actually run Ubuntu Linux with a vanilla GNOME setup, so I don't have the standard package of everything. I use a text editor called Gedit or Gedit, depending on who you talk to. Actually, that just has, I have it set up for some at least C level highlighting and stuff like that. It makes it a little easier for me to do. Set tabs as 4 spaces. This is just convenience stuff for me. So that's all. Um, anyway, uh, every single enemy in Ion Fury, just to get back on track for a darn second, one thing we did was at spawn, event spawn, we say, where is it? Yeah, so like here's an example with the brute. We spawn, whenever a brute is spawned in this event spawn, we do a bunch of stuff like we set the size, we grab its tags, we set a pal, we do, set its C stat. C stat is an internal thing that says what its flags are. So in this case, it blocks, which is flag 1, and it can be hit, which is flag 256. And so we just added them together, and that's the C stat here. So we actually, once I have this in here, then we have just make sure I didn't do this incorrectly. Oh yeah, that's right. I turned this into a bunch of states to make it easier. See, don't even remember how simple I made it for myself. Darn it. Trying to use my keyboard without bumping my microphone. It's difficult because I don't have my boom. So, anyway. Yeah. So, you were asking about C stat. C stat is, let's see. C stat for sprites is here. So we actually, somebody asked about art files. We actually didn't use art files when we made the game. We compiled the art file after we were done to speed everything up. But the actual art is from these what are called def files. You can see I have this set up with file path for 15512, which is the enemy that we defined. Goes to this file with these X and Y offsets, which just changes the orientation slightly of the image to make sure that it's centered in its display. And then when you start the game or start Mapster and start the game, once this def is included, which I just popped it into fury.def here under actors.def. Once you do that, then it'll appear. It's pretty much that simple, just importing art like that. Boom, 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 boom. And to convert it into workable for the game, I just imported the palette, which is included in the group file, which you can open as a zip file. You just pop the palette into Photoshop, edit your image to match the palette, either do a conversion or whatever. Just make sure to watch for Fulbright indexes, which are near the end. I think it's everything after index 230 is Fulbright. So you could actually probably just go and delete those from the palette if you know how to edit your palettes. And then when you import, you don't have to worry about it. But it's really ridiculously simple to import the art. It's not like way back when you had to use edit art and DOS and click little things here and there. Yeah, it just opens it right up. It's no big deal. And there's no art file at the end. It's just loose files. We actually used another tool to compile a final art file, which is in no way convenient for modding. You trying to make an art file, don't bother. The reason that some mods that people have already made are still compatible despite updates when they've made art mods is because they're not trying to edit the art file. They're just importing the art through defs. So art is actually somewhat restricted on resolution. For HUD art, it can be pretty much any size. And similarly for sprites, they can kind of be any size, but once you apply a texture to a wall, this is way outside of the topic, but once you apply a texture to a wall, if you notice in the corner down here where it has repeats, the repeats are actually some funky math for columns across the screen. And so there is a limit. So I believe once you have an image of 256, 256 pixels or larger, it can no longer be properly panned at all. It'll just kind of jump around when you try. Yes, we are streaming to multiple places, and also I I'm personally recording it, and I believe 3D Realms is saving it somewhere and for archive too. So anyway, where were we? So we set up our initial nonsense. Like I said, it's just copy and paste. This is load all of some initial stats, load the rest of your stats that you tagged for an enemy, and then you have your enemy right here. The environment is restricted, basically. Yeah, yeah. And the engine actually supports doing 256, not 256, sorry, more than 256 colors. You can do 32-bit art files and stuff like that. It's just that it's not how, like, it won't be integrated into Ion Fury. Then, like, we support software mode, so then anybody that plays in software mode would not be able to see what you made properly and stuff like that. So but you know, you can even take art that's not at the proper palette and do what's, if we go to this def file, you can see it says tile from texture. If you use this command, it'll import it and try to color match, and you will get really crappy imports. So don't bother trying to do that either. Don't try to cheat. Open it in Photoshop, convert the palette there, do it right. The theoretical maximum number of tiles is there we go. You can do this 30718. I believe this one is reserved, the final tile. That's your limit. So quite a ridiculous amount of art. All right. Back on track after all this copying and pasting. Now, you probably saw this variable here flash by a few times if you've looked at the cons at all, this different scripting files, or if you were staring at this screen. This is when we ran this state, this is what said if we could see the player or not. And this is what was returned from that. So, can we see the player? If we can see the player, then let's say state FPS, which will make it turn towards the player slowly. it's not walking around or anything, so it turns towards me pretty quickly. But you can see every once in a while it does twitch a little bit, and that's just because it can't always keep up with me. And that'll be the case even more so when we have it moving around. Let's see. The downside of all of this, by the way, is that, and the reason I have Mapster open is because it's easier to just launch a playtest, which is Control P, and boot right into the game and test one thing really quickly than it is to start up the entire game for one little enemy test, type in a map file, try to find the enemy, doing all that. I mean, don't bother. Mapster, get everything set up, Control P, pops open the game. If that doesn't work, it gives you an error for some reason, then go in and edit mapster32.cfg, point the where it says, gosh, what is even the text that it uses? I don't remember. Let's see if I can find it here. We'll open. Mapster32.cfg. Open. There we go. Where it says game executable, you can edit this. I actually just made a copy of my Ion Fury binary and renamed it Eduke32, but you can change this path to the Ion Fury binary instead, whatever floats your boat, and then Control P will work if it threw an error before. Anyway, where was I? Let's actually do this. Let's make it always turn toward the player. And then we'll say this. We'll say set move V. Now the trick here is that I have a bunch of generic states set up to do certain things. So if I say move V 3024 here and state move actor set enemy xv. Okay, just gonna explain this. This move V is your velocity. Then once you say move actor, it actually just says, okay, if this was forward velocity, what would the result be? And these are the return variables here. And then I can say state enemy do move. And we can see he's moving around, doing his own little thing. Hey. That's pretty cool, right? Oh no. Oh, I should explain that. Right here in this file surfaces.conf, you can add to surface flesh my enemy. And then that's what gives it that blood effect when it's shot. And it also then allows the damage ramping and everything to work properly. So you should definitely set that up if you can. You can actually do it outside of this file, but that's a little too complicated for a new, like, simple explanation for how enemies work. And if you're not as familiar with arrays and how that works in Eduke32, maybe you don't want to touch it. So we're going to ignore that part and just say, put it in surfaces.conf. We're going to keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple, stupid. remember that from my art school days. They always said, "Keep it simple, stupid." Whenever you tried to come up with some genius new thing, they're like, "Just do it this way. It's way easier." Um, Sorry, I'm reading chat too. The binary for Eduk 32 versus Ion Fury. Ion Fury's binary will be a little bit faster. And there are potential crash points if you're running Eduk 32 raw with Ion Fury. There's a couple little spots where you might overflow on sprites or some other silly things because of hard-coded nonsense in Duke 3D. But it is possible to build the binary yourself, so it's 100% supporting Ion Fury, as it is open source software. It's not all GPL, but large chunks of it are. So, and all of the code, as far as I know, is available. So that's at like svn.eduk32.com. There's actually a wiki link. Let me find it. There we go. And I'll actually add that here. There we go. I'll add it to this file. So everybody can see for themselves how to compile Eduk 32. And I'm pretty sure all you have to do is tag to the end when you're compiling, like Fury equals 1 or something like that, and it just works. Anyway, where was I? So we set up our behaviors, so standing, walking, running, hitting, swiping. Those are animations. We plugged in our basic nonsense, and then we showed that we can move an enemy. Okay? Simple enough. But we should actually put in some logic, right? So we should say, let's say, if action, I see my enemy stand. We'll do something silly like if he can't see, return 1 if R&D 64 action enemy walk around. No. Okay. And then that's when it gets fun, because if we say action, if action, you see my enemy walk, then we plug this all in. The important thing here is that these variables, enemy xv, enemy yv, that these get set, and then we can just leave enemy do move down at the bottom, and then anytime those are set and then this state executes, the enemy will move. So then we're actually setting walking speeds and running speeds and all of that through those actions. So we'll see how this actually works. Probably terribly. Hey, it worked. It's walking. It's coming after me. It's not dying. I can't kill it. The reason you can't kill it is because we have to say this command, if hit weapon. If hit weapon, if dead, Spawn a explosion. Kill it. We'll just do that. Oh, we'll do this too. I think it's dying blood, right? Or is it enemy dying blood? No, dying blood. There you go. I'm not explaining this part because it's pretty much self-explanatory. If it's hit by a weapon, if it's dead, spawn some skull jibs and some different blood, and we'll spawn an explosion and we'll kill it. And so oh, it's gone. It's gone. Oh. I forgot something. The reason that I did E-spawn on the explosion, that command, which I'll document here, should be da-da-da-da-da-da. Sorry, I had to do something really quick. All right, so let's see. Da-da-da. That should be correct, unless I messed it up. Keep that around. This command espawn, once you do that, that sets this variable return to the ID of the sprite that you just spawned. So then I can do stuff like, oh, set the explosion to, I don't know, bigger. Whoa. That was cool. All right. The other thing I suppose I should show with that. Remember I said, oh, we're going to add all this. We're just going to copy and paste. The reason we did that, copying and pasting, is because, oh, we just got the pistol targeting. And you didn't have to code it yourself. It just worked. All right. Let's see here. Exploding knights are very scary. It's true. Whenever they explode. I just did that for fun. So we can say walk, and then we can do stuff like, if p dist oh, this is faster actually. That's there's all these commands like if p distel 1024, we can say oops, I don't know why I indented that. If p distel 1024 set movie 0 action AC. I know, watching a guy code's so cool. indenting all messed up. Action AC. Run. I know this is going to be confusing. I'm actually going to change this 1536 is going to be cooler for this. All right. And we'll just copy this. A lot of copying and pasting that you can do for this just because of how everything is set up, which is super cool. We can say action. Yeah, we'll just do it like this. We'll double this, probably. Quiet here, because I'm flipping concentrating. Jeez. All right. So this logic is super ridiculously simple, actually. What we did here is we took our walking state. We said, if you're close, then maybe we should not keep walking. We could stand instead. And then we actually set enemy XV 0 and enemy YV 0. So it'll go back to standing if the player is really close. If the player is within a certain distance, it'll keep moving towards them. Otherwise, it'll switch over to their running action, which is basically the same code as before with walking. You'll see. Moving a little faster. Should probably make it run even faster than that. Let's do that. Let's say that this one is 64, this one is 128. It's all experimental with this nonsense. When I click mute, you lose sound. So you see, when you get far away, runs fast. He starts getting close, closes in, slows down, and then he stands there. Can change that range a little bit, actually. I thought it would need to be closer, but I was wrong. Or further away, sorry. Wonder if I can make him go even faster. Let's see. That's not what I wanted to click. You didn't need to see that. 192. There we go. That's a little better. Now, what we can do is we say we had this. If feet is still and it's standing, we can say to actually see my enemy swipe. All right. Here's where things are going to get more interesting, though. If actually see my enemy swipe. If action count. We will document that one. Should be this. And I'll copy that URL over here too. All right. The animation speed is defined ahead of time up here in the actions, which is why I sent that URL here. So the last thing here is the delay between frame changes, and it's actually to get the right value. Pretty sure you divide by 4, and then that's the number of ticks that it is, and it's stupid, and I hate it, but that's how it works, and it just has to do with the way the engine is trying to figure out interpolation and stuff like that. Then it has these weird values at the end. But 1 means no delay. So anything from like 1 until you get to 4 pretty much is no delay. And then a couple frames in between each, a couple more frames in between each. You got to just eyeball it, unfortunately. And so what I did here, though, I said, okay, there's 4 frames in this animation for the swiping animation. So we say if action count 4, then we'll go back to standing. Action AC my enemy stand. And you'll see. Yeah, there's 30 ticks per second. There's actually 120 internal ticks per second done for interpolation and stuff like that. But then there's also an additional factor where all of the game's code, so all of the scripting and everything is running at 30 per second. So you gotta figure it out that way and just eyeball it every time. It's attacking, but I'm not getting hit. What happened? Then let's make him get hit. There we go. We'll say this is dumb. Hold on. I have to show you guys another URL here. There's this property called htg underscore t htgt. Say that 20 times fast. And that's temporary data for enemies and actors and pretty much every sprite in the game. And in this case, what I can do is instead of saying something stupid like if action count 2, which would be the second frame of the animation, is when I want it to be hit. But the way action count works, when 3 is true, 2 is also considered true. It's dumb. So then you end up having to say if action count 3 null which means do nothing else. So like that's one way to do it, but that looks super messy and I don't like that. So what I usually do is I say if sprite.htgt number 2, which is your action count, then that's when it would do damage. Much, as long as I don't have a typo. Whoops, htgt2, sorry. Because it's an array. If htgt value 2 is 2, then we'll add p health and we'll start up the game here. HGTV. I died it. He's killing me. Son of a bitch. Now, this is fun. My enemy. There's another one. The bad part about this is that even if they're attacking, if I run in a circle, such that they shouldn't be able to hit me, if I'm close enough, I still will get hit. Which we don't really want. And we can compensate for that. There's this little function. We can say set ATT target to the player, right? State angle to target. FL ATT return. Now this is the cone that's around a given actor. 1024 would be directly behind the actor, and then 0 would be in front of the actor, directly in front. We want a decent range because it's a sword, you know, so we'd say 480. So most of 90 degrees in front of it, right? Like 70, something like that, or 80 degrees. And then, even when the guy's swiping at me, if I'm running around, he won't always hit me. We should reduce this range. We'll say 1024. Give the player more of a chance to back away. He's fun and exciting. Pretty cool. So that's most of what you need just to get something started. There are other things to consider too, like double damage pickup. Let's see. Damage. There we go. Yeah. When you are about to do your if hit weapon on enemies, if you look and go through here, you might see all of this nonsense right before if hit weapon. And this is me adjusting little things for different enemies, tweaking damage, doing stuff like that. We actually can, let's see. Trying to find this here on the mutant. actually copy this nonsense here. And then we're going to get into, yeah, let's see here. About time the guy got one in. Sorry, I just read that now. That's funny. Well, and I have it set up so I spawn directly in front of the guy too. I should probably change that. I get hit first thing every time. He's just too good. What can I say? Let's see here. What was I going to write here? We're going to go up here. We're going to change this to a duplicate. Shocked. And then we can start thinking about implementing our different, oh, I got hit states. So if it was hit with a weapon, if it was the shocker, which is the baton, then it has extra damage applied. We've got, we've still got its dead state. This is the one I just copied in, because what we can do here is we can say state AC, my enemy, shocked, else, whoops, not state, frick, action. Whoever didn't point that out to me as I was typing it is in trouble. You're all in trouble. Go to your rooms. Anyway, teasing. Yeah, I typed it correctly. I'm not a total moron. What I want to say is if action enemy hit, then we don't want to go through and execute all of this nonsense here. Instead, we'll say set move in, or state enemy do move. Make it slow down when it gets hit. And we can, I don't know, make the action count like half a second. No, quarter of a second. Action. You see my enemy stand. Now this is a tutorial. This is something I'm going to actually release when I'm done here today. The only thing that I did ahead of time was basic setup. So everything else that you're seeing is just from me copying and pasting and conversing and just randomly typing. So it's pretty simple to set this all up. Hey, it took damage. Nice. We said shocked. Shocked. Where's it? I'm actually, again, going to just cheat. Okay? Like, why am I gonna do a bunch of work if I don't need to? We can just copy and paste nonsense. It's fine. Doesn't hurt anything. Um, let's see. One thing that I did mess up here that I do want to rectify, because even I can make mistakes, is that this code for our if hit weapon is going to get moved. I'm going to move it right here. And you can do find and replace on this nonsense if you want. All right. So, what this basic code does is something that you can tweak to your own ends, or you could turn it into a generic state and use it pretty much everywhere. But all it does is say, when you're shocked, right here, then we're going to say that every other frame is full bright and every other frame flashes with a brighter palette, sorry. There is, let me find this. Palettes. There. I'm actually going to go through and comment this before I release it too, just so people know what's what and remember what happened in the stream, especially for people that didn't see the beginning, where I went into a block of code and copied and pasted and said, "Oh, see, this is your if can see check, and this is your low tag clearing check, and this is it." You know, I explained all that in the beginning, and anybody that didn't see that is going to have no clue what all that was. But needless to say, this was all so far mostly copying and pasting. In other words, just thinking about order of operations and implementing, you know, calls to set a certain action. So this should, if I did this right, when I use the baton, should electrocute the guy. Yeah. Boom. Take that, you stupid bitch. Sorry, I'm just having fun. I just love doing crap like this. I programmed all these little things into the game, man. See, SMG doesn't inherently do a lot of damage, so it doesn't go very far when I hit this. It's the fact that there's a high amount of damage over time that makes it affect enemies more strongly. It's more accurate if you use just one. You can burst fire pretty accurately. Anyway, what was I doing? Oh, I was supporting an enemy, not playing this game. That actually is a big problem with Ion Fury, is it's super ridiculously fun. So I'll boot up the first map to test some random effect or something like that. And then 10 minutes later, I forget what I was testing. So I'm still playing the game. Anyway, this actually is effectively a fully functioning enemy, even just with that. The only trick or deal would be if you wanted to add specific things like headshots and other stuff. That would be an entirely other file, which I don't have open right now because that's not very basic. But this does actually have damage ramping per region, sort of. So you see, like, I'm shooting this beat very quickly. So that part's in. It just doesn't have, since I don't have an animation for it, I never implemented the headshot stuff ahead of time for this. But it's actually really simple. It's just a list in a file called particles.con. You can search for, let me find it actually. There. Already opened in another window, whatever. Ace, a cultist. There we go. All right. So you're going to want to look for, in particles.con, these blocks of code right here. Like this one, that's at line 2267. You can see down at the bottom. These blocks of code are what give you your ability to then implement a headshot animation. What'll happen is it'll set these variables, letting you play a specific sound, and then also telling you if it was okay to play head exploding animation. But we're not going to implement that today. We're actually, I think we might even be done with the basic enemy. And I'm going to see if I did this right. We should be able to demonstrate a couple things here. This enemy should, if I did this right, follow me around here. Oh wait, they won't because I made them stop. That's right. I have this dumb block of code here that I forgot about. Where the heck is it? No, that should be working. What the heck? Stupid Git. You want to check all. Did I implement that? It should be working. Oh, that's right. I know why it failed. Because I'm dumb. I can only move properly if it sees the player. Else. Now we'll run. Why walk when we can run? And for this too, we'll say if you can see return 1. Then only if it can see the player will it actually remove health. Okay. Don't run after me. Stupid jerk. Now it works. Go figure. One thing you might have noticed in that thing where it was walking around the corner, it kind of bumped into the wall even before it really touched it, and that's a sign that it's clip dist, which is the sort of bubble that's around a sprite, is too large. Often they default to something stupid like, I don't know, 80 or other things like that, and so sometimes you just need to tweak it a little bit, especially if you have a very small sprite like the mech sect, which has another name which I'm not going to use because I'm trying not to swear too much on stream. Anyway, the mech sect and a few other enemies are a little smaller in size, and since we don't want them to bump into every little thing, we changed their clip disc value. You can see he's working pretty well right now, this guy. What should be working now because of this is locators, which, let's see, I believe this map actually exists in the example files, and if it doesn't, it probably should. Let's show this here. This is just a quick locator path test with a drone. Showing how it works when you have it set up so that you can see how your actor does with waypoints, or with with locator waypoints, and test that out for yourself. There's flags for enemies which are shown in Mapster, I believe, when you highlight over them, that let them either ignore the player or react to their locators in different ways, and that's all just something you have to decide as a mapper how you want to set it up. Everything is mapper controlled in this. Those actually respond to increased damage from the head too, by the way, just so you know. And that's why, you know, like a little bit of a slight bow charge will be enough to take them out. The reason I did that, though... Whoops. Typing in chat odd things, screwing everybody up. You can see it's actually working. And the reason that it's changing speeds is because remember we had those speed changes for if the player was close or not? Well, we're not guarding in any way to see if it's walking along locators or not before we decide to change that. And whether or not you decide to add an if condition for that, you can do that by after our let's see here. This variable here, way current, is your current waypoint, whether it's a locator or a breadcrumb. And when it's -1, it means you don't have one. So what you'll see here just runs along these patrols, which kind of looks a little ridiculous, but that's okay. Wasn't really the point. The point was just to try some stuff. Boom. All right. So, we have an enemy that can walk. We have an enemy that can run. They can be hit. They can be electrocuted. They follow waypoints. They follow breadcrumbs. They do all this stuff. And the majority of it was me copying and pasting bits of code and then changing a couple of little things. Integrating an enemy into Ion Fury's code base is pretty much copy and paste and then your own little personalized tweaks for everything. And there are some handy variables that are already around, like let's see, there we go. So you've got this set of variables right here, which are in enemies.con, and you can use this for all kinds of stuff. These on their own are meaningless. Their names are just a basic indicator of what I personally use them for. And so you can do things like, if I wanted this guy to strafe sometimes, what I can do is knowing what to copy is the $64,000 question. What you're going to copy is this stuff right here from this con file, and I'm going to comment which things did what. Okay, and the other thing we can do here is we could say if hit weapon. You could actually do this nonsense here, or not that. Sorry. If you wanted to mess with players a little bit when you shoot, there's a slight delay where they could end up, let's see, change the C set. I'll put it down here, never mind. I can't find anything. There we go. like 20 desktop windows open, virtual desktops, other things. Set it up so that when it's doing its hit animation, you can't keep shooting it, which is lame. Don't do that. But just showing you can set different things. This is a basic setup, though, that we have here. After all of that nonsense, we have a pretty much fully functional enemy. Let's see here. So we'll start commenting things for people that didn't see stuff earlier. This is your sprites palette. So for full integration. I'm actually going to go through and start commenting all of this so you guys can see what everything was that we just did again. So here we adjusted the blocking distance. If we had what it takes for another tangent for people not used to mapping and doing harmony. Ion Fury is, it's not, it doesn't work quite the same in build as Doom. There, it's actually it's weird. It's like something like 4 times the size in the Z plane as it is in the XY plane, if I remember right off the top of my head. There's actually a formula for it. If I can find it. Tile size Y. Here we go. Right here. If you see this little bit of code here, it's getting the size of the sprites pick num. That's the tile. Then multiplying it by 4. That's what this bit shifting is. And then multiplying it again by the sprite's scaling, which is its Y repeat. And then that actually gives you the Z height of the actor. So if the sprite Z was at 1024, I would subtract whatever value was spit out from this bit of math, and then that would give me the final height of the actor. That would say, oh, it's 1024 minus 512 would be the very top of the enemy's head, for example. That's how you figure that out. There's tons of little examples like that throughout the code of me finding the X or Y distance based on the scale of the sprite. Let's see. is that internal kind of hack. The way you activate it now is by setting this skip C variable, and then you can watch enemies go around locator paths that normally would be set to be able to see the player. Then they won't be able to see the player, just so you can watch what the heck they do. Um, there we go. I have my text editor shrunk, so here I'll stretch it. You can see better. Um, so what we did first, we set that. Then we adjusted the blocking. We did some shade fixing for to get it to the right sector shade, and then we checked for whether or not could see the player, whether or not we had the AI paused, and then should wake up. We clear the high tag for locators if it spotted the player. Otherwise, if it's flagged to ignore the player and keep walking around locators, it'll do that. And each frame, we're going to say that if it could see the player, then it will target them. This is actually, you see where it says set enemy target player.i. You can use where I have, come on, where is it? I was pretty sure I set player.i, yeah. See where I did player.i here, and we could change this to enemy target. And then if I ever decided that I wanted it to be in relation to a different actor, we can do that. That should actually just work the way it is. Let's see here. This is handler for Loverboy, alt fire. Is this block? Fall to the ground. It's gravity. If it's failed, then bail. And this is the double damage pickup. Damage scaling. Scaling for certain weapons. Damage. Now this reference, by the way, here to this Nuke Mutant damage scale, you don't have to go with this. Let's see. State Nuke damage scale. What this is doing is tracking damage over time into this variable enemy minigun damage. If you decided you wanted to jib enemies if they take a certain amount of damage in a certain amount of time, you can do it that way. This also scales up or down damage from certain weapons, and you can write your own version of this if you want. This is pretty self-explanatory. See, we got shot. If it was a shotgun, we'll scale the damage differently. If it's the lover boy, we can scale the damage a little bit differently. If it was the SMG, we can scale the damage a little bit differently. That's how this all works out. At the end, it dumps out a slightly different, either a slightly different damage modifier, or in some cases it just adds or subtracts a little bit of extra damage to this little set of variables that enemy minigun damage that is tracking your damage over time. If that makes any kind of sense. What are all the temp vars? Temp vars are whatever the hell you want. They exist to be used as temporary, and they're very temporary. There's no guarantee that they will be preserved in any way. So use them and use them up, and don't count on them beyond your simple quick math function that you decided to run. They're not preserved between ticks at all. They can be blown up between different actors at events and stuff like that. So they're temporary and global variables. So I just use those pretty much everywhere that I can, because it just saves on effort and memory. I don't have to keep defining a ton of variables for everything. And there actually are these variables: counter, counter 2, and counter 3. These are variables that are per actor, and so they are preserved per tick, and you kind of use those at will for different things. In fact, we're going to use one of them in just a minute after I get done commenting what we've done so far, just to show another little touch that we can have. This one's self-explanatory. This one is baton. Combo tracking for extra damage. This is duh. My first run. Set. All right. These are electrocution sounds. Why can't I spell? Electrocution. There we go. And then we go back to normal at different rates depending on combo stage. I hope this is going to be helpful, because this stuff is pretty flippin' generic. Oh. Here we set, oops, we set a new PAL for being shocked, usually, or some inversion. There we go. Where was I? Getting distracted now. So here. There we go. And this and state EFP. So this state EFPS and state EFP, which is facing the player directly, are key. They manage all of your the breadcrumbs and the locators and all of that stuff without you having to do anything. Then it all happens behind the scenes, and you have less work to deal with. I use those states a lot. There are cases where you would want to call directly to state find waypoints, which is that state where you would get a locator or a waypoint. But in this case, we want it to face the player anyway, so we're not going to try to do it all manually. There's no point. This is movement velocity. It's the final output. And I'll comment this. Angle to target. Degrees to see something. There we go. And then we'll comment what the hell that is. There we go. That's it. That's an entire gosh darn enemy in this. And we'll do one more fun thing before we quit, which is, if I can remember how this goes. There we go. Yeah. You can copy and paste this too. See, I can just copy and paste so much nonsense. This is nuts. All right. So we'll do it like this. Switch. Remember I said those HGTV. The Koch brothers are going to sell your house or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. I don't watch HGTV anymore. Let's see here. If we do 4, I think it's 4. Is it 4? See, even I have to look at this stuff. Then it should be, yeah. Case AC, my enemy. Right. Oh, wait. No, I'm going to change this. Yeah. Oh. Enemy lock. Might as well show this. If there's something that you want to share between multiple actions, then you can do this nonsense. Let's see, enemy step counter. The run animation is what, like 4? Something dumb like that. Mm-hmm. That's way too rapid of a sound effect, but let's do it like this. Let's see. All right. Yeah, that's better. This is silly, but I bet it'll stupidly work or some crap like that. If I can not mess up my... Oh, there we go. Close. Let's just say... Yeah. Hey, we added wonking sounds to this guy. Just like that. Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that cool? I even do things like, let's see here. Where does it run the swipe animation? Here. If it's enemy swipe, you can say sound. Let's see. What is it? Let's go to sounds.com. I bet there's a melee swing. Yeah. Yeah. Here's a fun trick that you'll see throughout the code. See, there's 3 swings here. So I can say brand temp 2 add temp sound temp. And then even a, gosh, what is it? Thud. Here we go. Yeah. I have a thud. Oh, clicked on the wrong con file. Doesn't help anything. I like to do stuff like this so I don't have to think too much. A lot of copying and pasting. Oh, sound temp. Obviously I don't want this here. We want it when the player would get hit. And even though we can do more than 5 damage, we don't want the sounds to play. So yeah, no, this should be okay actually, now that I think about it. I bet it'll overlap and sound terrible. Just as an example. There we go. Poor Shelly. She just can't stand up to this guy. Yeah. We recycle a lot of sounds because we can pitch shift sounds and also layer sounds together by playing more than one sound at a time. We actually are able to recycle a lot, which is good because, as I'm sure you've noticed, we have many thousands of sounds. So the fact that you can recycle rather than continually need to add a specific sound for every little thing is space saving and sanity saving. Unless some jerk tries to keeps going in and keeps editing all your sounds. But if you're making your own mod, I don't think you have to worry about you editing your own sounds. Because I think you'll know what you're doing. I think. Maybe not. All right. Now, the last fun thing. Those footsteps. Well, simplify this if action. There. All right. So I hope that this has been useful in some way to helping you figure out what the heck you need to do to get an enemy actually up and running. Boy, we fully support So first of all, Eduke 32 is open source software, including Master 32, and we fully support Linux currently. Actually, the engine roughly supports Mac, but it's not 100% there. You can compile it yourself, and it'll generally work. But we don't say, "Hey, this is fully supported. Ion Fury works with the Mac." There's a couple things there we're not quite ready with, but using Ubuntu to use Mapster and all that stuff is very simple. I mean, I have um, my tabbed set up with different uh, files here. And actually, my normal workflow is quite different from this. I have this on one virtual desktop so that everybody can see what the heck I'm doing. But normally, I would have this spread across a few. I'd have one for coding, one for testing, one for examining certain kinds of files, all that kind of stuff. I spread my workload, and then I also have a second monitor too that I use with can do more editing or chatting or watch TV or something like that on another monitor. So um, let's see. There we go. Okay, that probably explains most things that I. Yeah, pretty much. I really love modding. This is I've been modding. Let me think. Since let's see. Well, I want to say I've been modding since high school, but I actually started like sketching and doing maps and ideas and with grid paper and pseudocode and all that kind of stuff when I was even younger than that, and then I started modding more hardcore uh, when I was a teenager, and then a couple decades later, I'm still doing it. So it's super fun, and it helps you develop your own game design ideas too. You can test out something. And something like Eduk 32 and Ion Fury in particular, because some of the hard work is done for you, um, you can just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And uh, whether or not you decided to turn that into a full blown mod for Ion Fury, or someday take those ideas and make your own game with them, it's a great way to try stuff. And I think a heck of a lot of game developers um, that are well liked anyway started out doing modding in various places, these days anyway. Obviously, way back when, people weren't always modders, although even then they were in demo scenes and stuff. So I guess, yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that experimentation is what leads people to come up with good game design ideas, I think. So, are there any questions? Now, I have this file. It's all commented pretty much. Um, I'm going to distribute this after I do some cleanup and package everything. Does anybody have any questions before I end the stream now that it's been 2 hours of watching a dude sit and code and randomly jabber at you. Mm-hmm. You're welcome, Fred. I hope people were able to actually learn something from this because we actually tried to make it so that like I said throughout the stream, copying and pasting. I'm copying and pasting this, and I'm copying and pasting that. And yeah, you can dig into these functions that I'm copying and pasting and edit those. But for somebody that just wants to make something and make it work and make it integrated into Ion Fury, and so that then they can just go and experiment and try their own ideas and not have to think about all that nonsense. I tried to make it, copy and paste and just add your own little tweaks and not have to think, because classically speaking, like if you're going into Duke 3D, you can do a lot with what's available, but it's incredibly simplistic. And once you uh, in the way that it looks, but then once you try to do anything remotely complex, it starts to bog you down and make your life difficult. And so I didn't want that to be the case here. The video should be archived. I'm doing a recording. I believe that Fred or one of the other guys from 3D Realms has it set up on the back end. Maybe Daniel from 3D Realms. Yeah, he set it up on the back end, so it will go towards every place. Cool. All right, guys. If there are no more questions, then I think we'll have to call it done. Uh, Hang on, actually. One thing I want to show people while I have Mapster open. People ask about the end boss, and they say, I thought there'd be more. I thought there'd be more. There didn't seem to be as much build stuff as I thought. But the final boss is this. It's these sectors with all of these effectors. Shoot, Mapster's loud too. These are all different effectors all throughout the map. The entire end boss scenario is entirely map effect driven. The only thing that I did was add a way to tack on damage to an actor that would make triggers at certain stages of health. That again, were mapper defined. So it's all mapper defined. It's all this nonsense. Anyway, and all of that is part of the scripts too, and can be edited and tweaked to your own preferences once you get really deep into it. So stick with the basics for now. It's big fat enemy basic. All right. You guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all on Discord soon. You can go to ionfury.com, check out stuff about the game. Make sure to visit us on our Discord, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good one.